Okay, you're good to go.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Sugar House Community Council. I'm Landon Clark. Like we were talking about earlier, there's been a lot of Zoom bombing going around the community council meetings. It's been pretty ugly, so we're gonna do our best to avoid that tonight. Everybody's muted. We'll take all questions in the chat. Sorry about no videos, but we're gonna see how this goes and hopefully we can return to normal sometime soon. Couple of things before we get started. Salt Lake City Public Lands will be performing necessary tree and shrub trimming removal along the east side of 1300 East between Parkway and Claiborne Avenue. The vegetation has started to become overgrown, which is causing issues with the irrigation system in this area. This has resulted in a lot of dead and dying turf. The trees and shrubs will be trimmed back so they no longer interfere with the irrigation system, and all deadwood would be removed. This will happen the week of February 22nd. They're going to put doorknob flyers on all the homes in the area. We are going to hold our virtual annual town hall legislative meeting February 18th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. We'll have the usual suspects: Senator Evamoto, Representative Briscoe, Representative Pitcher, Representative King, and Senator Gene Davis. And then we're also going to have a state school board rep, Carol Lear, join us as well. Can we approve the minutes from the last 2 months? I'm assuming everybody says okay. So let's turn to Maggie. She just has something quick before she has to get to work. Is she on yet? See, I'm getting a lot of texts that people are having a hard time getting in tonight.
No, she's not on yet.
Okay. Let's go to secretary report. Devin, do you have anything tonight?
I think the only things are minutes. I think got sent out with the last newsletter. Let me know if you're having trouble accessing any of those. I'm just doing them in Google Docs. And then somebody had asked about posting recordings. I'll get with Brandon on that to post the recordings of the meetings too, in case anyone wants to go and listen to like more detailed stuff from our meeting. So I'll make sure we include that out. Other than that, I think that's everything kind of secretary business wise. So.
Is Mike Bagley on, Brandon? He's having trouble getting in too.
I don't see him yet.
Okay, we'll come back to him.
Oh wait, he's just checking in now. So let me just.
Okay, let's go to is Mike Whitney?
Yes.
Yep. We're here.
So Mike Whitney's our spotlight on business tonight. Mike, you want to introduce yourself and take a few minutes to tell us about your business?
I'm sure. This is my first Zoom meeting, so I don't know if I'm doing it right. But my name is Mike Whitney, and I'm here with Tila Christensen. We own the Village Vintage Interiors that just opened over on 1100 East, in between Central Book Exchange and Sugar House Coffee.
And what are your hours?
We're open every day. So Monday through Saturday, we're here 10 to 7. Sunday, we are open 12 to 4.
Awesome. And you guys have been open about what, 2 weeks or a month?
We opened at this location on January 4th. We were over on 700 East in a shared space since June, but we've only been doing this since June. So.
And we're going to film you guys tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited.
Anything else you want to add?
I think that's good.
I'm sorry we can't see faces.
You would just see how confused we are. So.
I know, right? Well, thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mike, you want to give a treasury report?
Hang on, Mike. Let me find you.
Hello?
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, okay. Thanks, everybody. You want to see my video? Okay, it's all right. I'm just sitting here at my computer. Okay, treasury report, just logged in, checked their balances. Today, our US bank account, we're sitting at $10,678.90. Activity for the last month, we had a payment to Mountain Standard Time for our ongoing Sugar House Strong Series, $94.95. Paid that out. As far as deposits into our account, I moved earlier in the month of January. I moved the balance of our PayPal account, which was $847.51 from the PayPal account into our US bank account. So that cleaned out zeroed the PayPal account down to nothing and no new activity there to report. In addition to that, just an 8-cent deposit for interest on our bank account. And the only other thing is we've just, during the last month, submitted a renewal to the Salt Lake City Recorder's Office to renew our recognized community organization status. So we got those materials in, and so hopefully that's all approved and moving forward for another year. That's what I got, unless there's any questions.
Just one comment on the Mountain Standard Time payment, which is me for the ads. That will be moving over to the chamber payment, so we won't have those coming out of the council moving forward.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for that update.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, let's go to Maggie.
Did you say Maggie?
Maggie, go ahead, Maggie.
I know there's a Maggie on here too. Hi, everybody. So good to see two of your faces.
Times.
So I just want to quickly announce that the Sugar House Community Council received a grant from Salt Lake Arts Council for $2,000 to go towards the murals, the street murals on the new McClellan Street project, which is happening this spring. So I guess aside from just making you all aware of this, I'd like to invite anyone who's interested in helping with this. We have our Arts and Culture Committee meeting on this Monday, the 8th at 7 p.m. Please join us. If you go on the Sugar House Community Council page and go to the Arts and Culture Committee, my email's there, and I can send you the Zoom link and more information about the project. I'll also put my email in the chat here. But just a little update on how we're going to pull this off is we still need to raise money. It's a matching contribution. So we need to raise a few $1,000s to pull this off. And the Sugar House Community Council Treasury report sounds really nice. So hopefully there's some funding in there as well to contribute to this project. And we have some wonderful committee members, Beth and Baha, who are coming up with like a sponsorship package so that we can approach some of the new developers in that area whose street that will also be. We're going to be connecting with local businesses. We're going to need volunteers to paint. We're going to be doing a call for artists to find artists to design and execute these murals. So it's a really exciting project, and we're so grateful to have this funding. And yeah, so let me know if you have any questions, and please join us again Monday for our committee meeting at 7 p.m. And maybe I'll send an email out to all the committee members. But again, just email me if you want to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. Nice job on the application.
Thanks
Well
for your
done.
help.
Yeah, well done. All right, Detective Mines, are you ready?
Yes, I am ready. Thank you for unmuting me.
The detective has been in a lot of these Zoom bombing meetings, so he could probably tell you what he's seen. So
I'd rather not talk about the things I've seen. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's been 2 back-to-back that have been pretty crazy. Not really cool.
yeah.
But I wanted to first kind of introduce myself to everybody. My name is Detective Meinzer. I have been with Salt Lake City Police Department for 7 years. I used to be doing just District 6, doing the Community Intelligence Unit job. Our department decided that we needed to get more bodies back into patrol because we're kind of lacking that front end security for the city. So we took 20 bodies back to patrol to try and help with those numbers and get those response times back down to where they should be. And with that change, we kind of shifted duties of quite a few different squads. So my squad, we were reduced from 1 detective per district down to 3 detectives for the whole city. So I cover 5, 6, and 7 now. The one benefit though is instead of having a sergeant that I report to and things get lost in translation going up the chain, I report directly to my division commanders. So it's actually kind of cool when I have a hot spot, I'm like, hey, sir, this is the issue. Help me. And we'll brainstorm. And then it's really cool when a captain tells someone to do something, they just go do it. There's no requesting up the chain to do stuff. It's really cool. With that, obviously I have lots of community councils that I attend. I had 2 right before this. But I'm here for you guys just as much as I'm here for every other district. So I think that it's very important to work with the community, because I believe that without having a close relationship with you guys, I'll miss out on so much and I won't be able to be effective. So I really want to stress, you guys are always welcome to reach out at any time. Concerns, questions, comments. If you guys think of ideas on what we can do to do better, that's great. If you think that we're failing at something, that's great critique too, because if we're doing something that's not satisfactory, let us know, because maybe we don't know yet and maybe we can do things differently. So it's very important that relationship. I'm always happy to work with everyone. Okay. So tonight I kind of wanted to do a brief about a project that I've been working on. So it involves CPTED, which is crime prevention through environmental design. But I went a little further with it. So I've been working on the project to kind of identify what are some key things that citizens can do to kind of help deter crime in their neighborhoods. So I actually sent out a hotspot map to the community council chairs. So I believe you should have received that, Landon. So you'll be able to send that out to everybody. And the email that I sent you, feel free to disperse to everybody that you want. But I kind of want to go through some of those things. So I identified quite a few areas that I'm kind of worried about. And the hotspot map specifically is relating to mostly property crimes. So property crimes are things where citizens or where people are coming by and they're stealing off your porch, or they're, breaking into your car, or they're breaking into your shed or your backyard and taking objects. Those types of things can actually be deterred. Obviously, there's criminals that are going to be out there that won't be deterred by no matter what you do. They're going to keep doing what they do. A large majority of them can be deterred. And a lot of that can be done through quite a few different techniques, but CPTED, like I mentioned, is amazing. So number one, they talk about natural surveillance. So that doesn't mean security cameras. So the important thing about natural surveillance that you're looking for is if you're standing outside and you're on your property, or you're looking from the street to your property, you're looking for clear line of sight. You're looking for exterior lights that are turned on, or even motion sensor lights. I recommend those near entryways, exits, driveways, garages. The important part is when someone comes up to your property and they look and they see that it's well taken care of, your bushes are trimmed so they're no taller than 2 feet. Your trees are trimmed so they're no shorter on the canopy than 6 feet, so that you can see out. Because if they see your property and they think, wow, someone could be at that window looking at me, that's a great psychological advantage for you, and it helps deter. So we're trying to create that natural open area with good lighting, good, well-maintained properties. Another thing too is when you have your vehicles parked, make it a habit. Go through your car. Make sure that you don't have trash, cords, anything valuable. Like my car. Oh yeah, sure. Start my video. Can you see me now? Pardon my home. This is my home. I'm from home right now because it's evening time. So that habit, like I said, so my vehicle, I leave nothing in it. I don't even leave any trash in it because people come by, they're going to check every single handle on average. And if they see something in there, like a cord to like an iPhone, and let's say it falls down to the ground and the cord ends underneath your seat, they're thinking, hey, there could be something under there. And that might be a reason that they could break a window. Another thing too is make sure that you check to see if it's locked. I know that a lot of people are like, I always lock my car. I tell you what, even I've forgotten to lock my car sometimes. You know, sometimes you're grabbing stuff, sometimes you're in a rush. It happens. Just try to make it a habit to lock the car and just double check. Another thing too, this one I can't stress enough. So how many people have your fob to your garage just right on your visor? So a big thing is if people get into your car, number one, they're going to open your glove box and they're going to look for registration or any documents. Number two, they're going to look for that garage door opener, because if they get that, they can come back another day. They can kind of come and see, all right, when are they here? When are they gone? And they can go through your garage. So that's something that's pretty important, because if they have your registration and they have your garage door clicker, they now know which garage door clicker goes to where. So they can always be like, all right, cool, this is this one, and let's come back later. Another thing too is having a great community connection with your neighbors. So the best part about the Sugar House District, as well as District 6 and District 5. So if you look at long-term residents, we have the highest number of duration of living here compared to the rest of the city. The rest of the city has got a lot of people that kind of live in apartments, they come and go. But the benefit to that is you have neighbors that will be there for a while. And if you get to know them, kind of become friends with them, you kind of understand what to expect from their behavior. For instance, you know, like, oh, my neighbor next door for me, actually, they have no guests ever. So if anyone ever comes by their house, it's either going to be a delivery person or some random person that I need to be like, hey, what are you doing over here? And that's important, because if you see someone that, if you know your neighbors well and you see someone that you don't recognize and they're kind of walking around, call us. It doesn't hurt to call us and let us know. Also, another benefit is if I go out of town, my neighbor, I can actually be like, hey, I'm going out of town. You take out my trash, you know, hey, can you go flip on my lights? They actually have a key to my house because I trust them that much. But that's very helpful to kind of make your home look as it's still occupied when you're gone. When you do go on vacation, don't leave everything turned off and don't leave everything completely turned on. You kind of want to have it looking like you're there. So I typically always have my back porch light on, my front porch light on. And then my neighbor will come and switch on like my living room light and stuff like every other day. So it kind of creates that pattern that's not just steady. Oh, everything's exactly the same. But also at night when I am here, I do sometimes have my living room light on or off just randomly, just to try and give, if someone were watching, I don't want them to have the same picture every single day to where they're like, okay, here's a pattern. I want it to be random. So that's something that you can do as well. Another thing, which this one's awesome. So neighborhood watch groups. Okay. So I set up a virtual meeting. It's going to be on February 23rd at 6:30. If you guys are interested, I can give you the link to that. Detective Wilking and myself will be there. We're going to kind of answer questions about Neighborhood Watch, because right now a lot of people are deterred because they don't want to be the person that organizes something. Because they're like, yeah, like it would be good to kind of talk with my neighbors and kind of keep an eye out and be able to report things. But I don't want to be the person that goes out and initiates that. So this meeting is for you to come and kind of talk about it and see how little organization you have to do. Ask any questions you have to get more clarification. I highly recommend Neighborhood Watches because it creates that investment in your community with each other, because you kind of get to be with like-minded folks who are like, you know what, I want to have a safe community. What can we do? You know, and you get that brainstorming behavior, and it's a really good thing to be a part of. Another thing I can't stress enough, report everything that's suspicious. You see someone walking down the street, nextdoor.com is not your friend. Call dispatch, go online, do whatever it takes to call us, okay? Because it's funny, because I worked District 6, and last year we had a bunch of package thefts and car prowls, and it was a significant increase in crime. And the citizens started reaching out to me before our CompStat folks even saw the spike coming. So they were about 2 days ahead. So I even had one person that was like, hey, you know, I saw this weird guy walking around checking door handles, and he sent me the video from his Ring doorbell camera. That actually helped me build the case and tie that person. So we had a group of people, about 3 people, that were doing 80 different car prowls, package thefts. We were able to link 80 different cases to one small group of people because the citizens were paying attention and they were reporting suspicious behavior. Even if your car gets broken into and nothing's stolen, report it, because that tells me, hey, I'm having these car prowls occur, because it helps me track. So if you have a car prowl, it's not going to happen just one neighborhood and that's it. Like I said, they're going to try and hit every door handle just all the way down the street and go to the next and the next. And if I have gaps in the chain where people don't report, it doesn't help me have that good picture of everything that's happening. And on top of that, when you guys are reporting everything, it can really give us a good picture of, hey, this is where we're failing. What are we going to do to try and do better?
Hey, Detective Heinzer, do you mind if we ask all questions in the chat and you stick around to answer them? You're going to have a lot.
Yep, absolutely. I'm totally here. I'll be here until the end of time. So.
And maybe put all your contact information in there for folks to, okay. Thank you.
I can do that.
Okay.
I'll finish this list, and then would you like me to do questions then?
We'll just do them all by chat tonight. So
Perfect. Okay.
You can just respond at your leisure.
Okay. So the last thing, like I mentioned about reporting everything, one thing that has been like a saving grace for me lately is doorbell cameras. Surprisingly, I get a lot of footage off of there that is so very helpful. And sometimes it's just black and white because it's nighttime or you don't have a very good camera. But I've gotten car make and models from doorbell cameras, which helps me be like, hey, this is my suspect. And then later gotten people caught because we were looking for a specific car. Very helpful. I would love it if you guys get it. I mean, it's up to you. I have one. I can't swear by them enough. They're awesome. So this list that I kind of went through, I kind of jumped through it a little bit quickly, but I also have on there's some CPTED principles you can go through. There's a home security checklist, car prowl burglary prevention sheet, all that stuff I've sent out, and you guys can get it forwarded to you. So I'll go ahead and jump over to the questions now. I'm sure there's a bunch.
There's a bunch.
There's a lot of participants here. I was surprised when I got in because I've not typically had this many.
Welcome to Sugar House.
It was a hell of a night to change up our technology approach when we had one of the busiest meetings yet.
Yeah, I normally just log in through the browser because I've not downloaded Zoom before, and it wouldn't let me in. So I had to download Zoom and create an account and stuff. It was kind of,
well, thank you.
So let's see.
Thanks for coming. Let's have Amy Horman talk about the Sugar House Farmers Market.
Do you want me to do those questions first or no?
Nope, you'll just answer them in the chat.
Oh, okay.
So we'll just mute you and just raise your hand if you need anything else from us.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see so many familiar names of friends and neighbors. I'm Amy Horman. I'm with the Sugar House Farmers Market, and I just needed 1 minute to let you know that something will happen in 2021. So we've just started meeting. 2020, obviously, nothing occurred as far as the farmers market goes. And in 2021, we're not really sure what the market will look like, but I just wanted to just pop in and quickly say something will happen and look for it. So if you have any input, questions, comments, you can email sugarhousefarmersmarket@gmail.com and look forward to August Sundays. That's what we know so far. So that's it. Thank you.
Well, that was fast.
That's all I got.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for bringing it back. Let's get a Sprague Library update. Shree?
Hey, Landon, we did have one question.
Yeah, is it really Lynn?
It was Lynn.
I'll text him and ask him. Go
Can
ahead,
y'all-
Shree.
Yeah, or can y'all hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so just a quick update. 2 weeks ago, we moved all of our collections from the firehouse and anything that we had at Maine to our remodeled building. It took about a week to place everything on our shelves. And then as of yesterday, our building has passed all inspection and has been signed back over to us from Paulson Construction. So the next steps are going to be that we have furniture arriving next week. There was a little bit of delay with our tables for our computers. But once we get those tables, our IT department is going to come and install the computers, the scanners, and printers. We're also working with our marketing department to determine the best way to have limited number of people come in and do a tour of the building. So, can't have a grand opening like the good old days, but we definitely want to show off the building and how amazingly beautiful it is. And we're also trying to figure out how to do holds to go with the new building. Since the parking lot isn't ours, we don't have like a designated spot for the library. We're kind of trying to see if we can maybe get that to work at Sprague. And then the parking along Highland is a little precarious. There's lots of construction. So we're still trying to figure that out. But as of right now, we're still at the firehouse and we're still doing holds to go there. So that is the same, but we don't have any collections in the firehouse right now. So everything is over at Sprague, which is really awesome. And I'm appreciate y'all's support in this endeavor. And we're really excited to almost be back 100%.
We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you, Landon.
Yeah, thanks for everything you've done. Okay, so now we're going to hear about 24-Hour Fitness. We're going to introduce Michael Augustine, who is the owner. Mark Isaac, who you guys all know.
Yeah, hi, this is Mike. Thank you for having us tonight and putting us onto the agenda sort of last minute. I'm not sure if Mark is unmuted. We also have 3 team members from our architecture firm. The name of the firm is BKV, as you'll note on the plans. We've got Sam, Jonathan, and Ron. Since the format of this is a little bit different with the Zoom bombing, I think I'm just going to take it. I think, again, the intent is it's sort of for us a neighborly presentation of ongoing conceptual design. I will state that we met with the Land Use and Zoning Committee of Sugar House. It was 2 to 3 weeks ago. Also as a neighborly introduction, we presented a concept plan very similar to what you see here, except it was probably much closer to version 1. And the idea is, like I said on that call, is, we're here, we're going to be here long term. I've been a Northern Utah resident now for just over 8 years. I love Northern Utah. I live in Park City. I love Salt Lake City. I love Sugar House. I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to buy the property and present the project to the group here. So the idea is, we are a multifamily developer. We develop a very high-end project. I'm not really here for the developer pitch, to be honest, as much as we are to share just our conceptual design. So again, our Land Use and Zoning Committee meeting, we did incorporate some comments back from that. I can speak to those specifically as we get to them, but without me really controlling the screen, we wanted just to kind of to share our presentation. And again, I think the conversation is more fluid. We wanted to take feedback from the community, obviously across all different topics. We did speak about design. We did speak about a Publix art display. We did speak about how we're going to dress up the buildings, how we're going to interact with the park, which is a big plus and something we're real excited about. So not only, working with the community council, is important to us with this feedback so that we can, design and create, the best project for this neighborhood. But we also are going to be working very closely with, departments at the city and making sure that that roadway, that right of way between the park and our property ends up with the best result, as it is our desire to, contribute as much effort into this project, so that when it's done, which, once it's done, we kind of lose the opportunity that we've captured sort of what's best for the neighborhood. And we want to create, an amazing community. We want to create amazing design. We want to create amazing, street front connectivity to the park. We're speaking to sort of local entrepreneurs about integrating them into our building to create more of, activity, around the park, whether it be coffee shop, whether it be, outdoor patio seating for people to enjoy. So as we go through here, I'll just bring up a few different things, and, I can guide through the pages. This is a good one in that, we are looking for the history of Sugar House. All of our projects, are very important to us. We are not a large developer that has a brand and basically does a cookie cutter stamp in all of our markets. All of our projects are very boutique. They're very specific. They tie to the local population and local neighborhoods that we're in. So we spend a lot of time working with the communities, working with agencies that help us create the brand. They help us create the name, things that really resonate and tie to the existing location. So here are just, again, some imagery. We put a lot of imagery in this presentation because, again, we are in a conceptual phase and we're trying to pull together things that we've heard during feedback during our first meeting and things that we think would be, a big hit here. So of course, the S line, historical, Sugar House, we noted that the, railroad spur used to go through our property. So we were interested in, perhaps that we can just keep scrolling through. I'll talk. And so, yeah, some of the comments and just to sort of create scale, on the very first page, we tried doing an image overlay, which again is very conceptual, which shows how the property sort of, fits into this part of the Sugar House neighborhood. Again, as I think Landon mentioned early on the call, is, we're here as good neighbors and we want as much feedback to help contribute to, our design. We are designing within, the current zoning ordinance with the city. So we're really not asking for, variances for the city. We plan to build our project, the zoning and the development standards that are allowed within this central business district Sugar House 1 zone. So yeah, moving back on, some of the feedback we got is we don't want, one large mass building, and again, these, please, when you're looking at these, know they're very conceptual, which is why we added a bunch of imagery and photos as to certain ideas that we're looking at. We know it's a big building. There are certain components of it. We've got, a parking garage, which will be hidden. We've got townhomes wrapping the first, second, and third level of the main building. We wanted to do that very specifically to create that very residential feel, to the park. And beyond that, we have stepped back the building an additional 15 feet. And we want to make that building also feel residential and have a lot of character. So some of the imagery you'll see throughout the presentation, shows that, a large building can have different personalities and different sections. And that's our intent. I think that's, one of the feedback we had is we just don't want to create, one large mass. I think a lot of that has been done and doesn't necessarily add the character people desire to the building. Another item that I thought was important that was a desire of ours that was also feedback from our land use and zoning meeting is that we want to create, very wide sidewalks. We want our property frontage to be very pedestrian friendly, very bicycle friendly, and just very user friendly. We were able to, from our first concept, to be able to create wider sidewalks. So I think at a minimum, we're 15 feet. At a maximum, we're just over 20 feet. So those are great. We can accomplish a lot with that, creating a nice residential streetscape, dedicated bike lanes, landscaping. And again, it's our desire to have a lot of connectivity to the park. So, in the city's control, which we plan to work with closely, is like we would like to utilize as much of that right away and make those improvements and create, as wide of a sidewalk that we can and create as dedicated of bike lanes that we can and make sure that the landscaping is correct and, crosswalks to the park. Another image on this page, which looks very, institutional. It's not our intent at all. But initially we had the southwest corner, the main corner of our building, which you're looking at in the upper image, sort of come all the way out to the property line, not including the, the sidewalk, smaller sidewalk we had in the previous version. And there was a comment about, is it possible to create an art display, which we love the idea. And again, we will find, the right thing that, kind of represents this area of Sugar House. So we have created a nice covered space, outdoor space that we intend to be for public use. And we're going to look for the right, ideas and sculpture where we can put, art and have seating so that it's not just for use of our residents, but it's going to have, again, that real connectivity to the park. It'll have, a representation of something that has a tie to Sugar House. We'll somehow memorialize that with, a plaque and a narrative behind that. And yeah, I'm trying to look at comments on my iPad as they pop up. And it is our idea, as we've talked to our internal design team that I mentioned on the phone, and that we do want to reach out to any resources, local art groups, the art program at the University of Utah, anybody that can help contribute to, again, the design, the personality, and the experience of the building. So again, what's shown here, just, we're not looking to be institutional. It's very conceptual. We would like to create much more of a residential feel on this, which you'll see in the imagery, by bringing down the scale of certain things like those columns, perhaps doing them in, a brick wrap, or something. Again, I'm just throwing ideas out so nobody looks at this and feels like we're going to be building a massive white building.
Yeah, I was going to add to that, Mike, that I'm so thrilled to be working with the BKV boys. We haven't had the good fortune of seeing the work they do in Salt Lake City yet. And the way they start layering and building things and adding to the accoutrements of a building based on comments, fit and feel, and community, it's going to be fun for all of us to watch how you guys have this building continue to morph into something that would belong in Sugar House.
No, that's great, Mark. I appreciate that. And while you're speaking, is there anything else you want to add? I don't want to completely.
No, not at all. I think just, with the group of people on tonight, just to keep them apprised of what you're up to, Mike. I like the path you're taking, but I'm super excited for you to show them the imagery that you are so concerned about your shadow walls on the park and how your building affects the park, that you've gone so far as to have BKV do that study. Those are the kinds of layers of detail we haven't traditionally seen in our community. A lot of you know how much I've done in this community. I'm super proud to see the direction that you're taking thus far. That's all I was trying to add.
Hey,
Okay,
Mark,
thanks,
just
Mark.
just for reference sake, Wilmington Flats is 110 feet. Just so you guys get an idea of how high this will.
Correct. Yeah, this
Sugar House.
the building size, scope, and scale makes everybody in Sugar House nervous. It does me too.
Yeah.
But zoning allows for this height. This height is accommodated, and it will be in scale with everything else that's there. It just feels a little funny and odd at the moment, but we're really confident that the way this thing sequences in around that park, providing extra eyes and extra energy to the Fairmont Park side of things in Sugar House, is going to be a huge benefit to our community.
Yeah,
Right.
thanks, Mark. And I noted Landon, and we have, if you want to scroll maybe slowly through, there's a couple images I want to put. Yeah, so I know it's hard to see for people on Zoom, but not the far upper right corner, but the one right next to that. Again, not exactly what we're going to do, but you can see how a large building can be broken up into, sort of multiple personalities by doing, different exteriors in different chunks of the building. So although that may not be an exact representation, because we're not quite there on exactly what we're going to do, we do know that our building will look like, several buildings kind of layered and not one large mass, to the point, Mark was stating that it does, seem like an overwhelmingly large building now. And, one of the other comments too that was brought up on the land use and zoning committee was, what will this do to the park? The park, people walk their dogs, and it's a tall building. So we did do a shading study. It is on page 12. If we can go there, we'll stare at it for just a minute. So you can see the shading studies. Basically, it covers each season. We do sort of a 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. study. So, without me kind of just reading what's obvious, you can kind of see the earlier mornings, obviously the sun coming from the east, casting shadows to the west. Our property on, Ashton and 1100 East, the park, Fairmount Park is the west. So you can see there's really minimal impact if you actually look at where the shadow is casting. The most major dramatic, shadow cast, happens to be at the start of winter at 9 a.m. It's probably lasts like an hour or two. As you can see by noon that it's, directly north. So I think, if this is shared, which we're totally cool with doing, take a look at this. If there was concern around that, even in some of the other, summer season, you can see at a maximum when the shadow is cast towards the park, it's barely making it across the street. So I thought this was a good study. BKB did a good job sort of in response to some of the comments on that first, just to show, what the impacts of shadows would be on the park. And, we're happy to see that, it's, I would say, minimal to really none. So again, just another data point that we just wanted to respond to. And then as you kind of scroll through the next several pages, it looks at what our project is. So that we would call this sort of our conceptual plan. It breaks down unit types, it breaks down, building footprint on the next page, and basically goes all the way up. So we do have two parcels. We're creating two very distinct buildings. The larger building, which has kind of the U facing the park where the current 24-hour building is, it's a market rate, multifamily deal. We'll have a lot of, what other apartment communities do, but we like to think we'll have a little bit more and we'll do it a little more thoughtfully and better. We would be happy to share any of our track record projects, just so, people understand that, again, the boutique comment I made earlier is, design is very thoughtful, is, layered and textured, and, we're not just doing cookie cutter projects. We have lots of amenities. Again, we're trying to incorporate some, local entrepreneurs who could be, a part of our buildings to create those sort of, public amenities as well.
Hey, Michael.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to follow up with you regarding that. This is Brandon Hill. Erica Wiggins and I have recently taken over the Sugar House Chamber of Commerce. And we would love to have a conversation with you about how to maybe make this property, attractive to local sugar house businesses or potential entrepreneurs in the future. So I'll follow up with you via email, but I think that we could have a really cool conversation there.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing your email. Thank you. So again, we're trying to add, just a lot of what we think the lifestyle is. Obviously, there's a lot of recreation, the parks and the trails, and we're big proponents of just healthy lifestyles, living great lifestyles. So just everything in here with bike lockers and dog washing rooms, and we try to incorporate everything as if we were envisioning ourselves living in this building. And also as we get into, focus groups with the community and who we think our, prospective residents are, it really helps us craft like the best project possible. So the two buildings are uniquely distinct. As I mentioned, the larger, more conventional multifamily project going into construction, if we stay on our timeline, would be probably very late summer or early fall of this year. The smaller building on the south side of Ashton, which is directly next to the liquor store, which was just a parking lot that 24-hour Fitness used, is going to be a very different building. We're going to have smaller floor plans. These units are targeted at smaller square footages and smaller chunk or nominal rents, which we're trying to make attainable for anybody who wants to live in Salt Lake City. So without having, and we're actually looking at, it's a kind of a co-living model, which I'm sure people have read or have heard or seen, a micro unit co-living model. But again, we thought it would be unique. I'll get to the parking question too in a minute. We thought it would be unique to, provide a variety of floor plans, a variety of square footages, and a variety of rental price points, so that we're not just targeting, the market rate sort of rent of the market. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of studios, each floor on the bottom sort of photo. It's hard, but the orange is units and the purple is common space. So not only do we have main common areas for the buildings, but each one of these floors will have open common spaces for residents of that floor. All have outside decks, et cetera. So again, for anybody who ever wants to reach out and follow up about the project, if they receive this presentation, please feel free to do. I'm trying to be efficient on the call. So there was a last question about parking spaces per unit. So right now we're targeting, and we have shown in here, about 1.05 to 1.1 spaces per unit. As we fine tune, we know that parking is kind of a necessity. So we're dealing with both sides of the spectrum, which we always do. We love to think that, we're in Salt Lake in an urban area and people, are going to be much more transit oriented focused. And we do think that to some extent on the south building. We think that renter who is going to be renting that size of unit, will be, I would say, although could be likely, will be less likely without a car than someone in the larger building. So again, we always design these with marketability in mind. So despite, what zoning does, we always like to do what is going to be best for the market, our residents. So, we are doing more than one car per unit. It is slightly, and yeah, we feel like that's the right thing, despite, the city, and again, we're trying to accommodate sort of all parties that, the city would like to see less parking just based on its, proximity to the S line and it being sort of a 24-hour walkable neighborhood. And so again, as a thoughtful person, we're not just looking at this as, yep, we're building these projects and they're going to be great. We like to be thoughtful about all of these things and make sure that the experience of the resident, is as good as the experience of the neighbors and all the shareholders involved. And we just have seen, despite, a lot of areas like this, that, people have cars. So whether they drive them or not, they're going to have cars. So we're trying to design to that. Sorry, really quickly, let me get to some of the last questions. We have not yet conducted a traffic study, but we are about to engage in one of those. ETA to provide transit passes.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Lynn Jacobs is actually on the call tonight, so we'll have a sit down with him so we can chat about this. Do you mind if we move to another presenter and you can just answer the chat on your own?
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you everyone for having us. I appreciate the presentation time.
Hey, Mike, and it's been a real pleasure to work with you so far. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Lynn.
There we go. Hey,
Next,
thanks for
Jacob.
thanks for
Yeah, he's for Salt Lake City Transportation. You guys have all seen him before. He's asking us to be part of I think, a really cool project. So he's here to just kind of talk about it briefly tonight. I think Matt Castle's on the call as well, right?
I haven't seen his name, but there's a ton of people here. I hope he is. If he is, love to have his comments as well. And I appreciate your time. And I know we're a little bit behind schedule, so I'll do my best to get us back on schedule. Just the three things. Oh, of course. The three things that you really should know is that, okay, so this is the 2100 South project. The city will be doing a full depth reconstruction of that section of roadway in 2025, which is 4 years from now. And I'm talking from 700 East to 1300 East. So that kind of heart of Sugar House piece of 2100 South. Huge opportunity for us to look at that road and say, how does it work? What works well? What doesn't work? What can we do better? For us, we have to do a pretty intense design effort leading up to that. And the way we traditionally would do that is we'd take a couple years, we'd go through our concept design, we'd go through a full design, and then we'd get it built. We are absolutely going to do that. As a matter of fact, we recognize 2100 South is so important that we'll probably take a couple of years to do that concept design and then another year for the full design. So we're kind of planning on a year extra for this project just because it's such an important, critical part of the neighborhood. So that would start about a year from now. We'll go out, we'll hire a consultant team, we'll engage a ton with the community council. There will be a lot of civic outreach. There will be a lot of involvement, a lot of back and forth. We won't have decisions made until we reach the end of that time, which is like 2 or 3 years from now. So we've got a lot of work left to do on this. But we're really excited because the University of Utah approached us and asked if we would partner with them on doing a capstone project of this 2100 South project. And so it kind of gives us a chance to like pre-look at this even a year before we would start our formal process for the project. And so we're actually going to engage the students now. They've started, they're looking at the project. They'll be working on it throughout this entire year. It's a 2-semester course. For them, it's the civil engineering department at the University of Utah that's doing it. We've done this with students before. We are currently have them looking at our 300 West project. We're really happy with how that turned out. And, you know, it kind of gives us a chance to kind of kick some ideas around before we get to that formal process. And really the whole point of doing it is to give the students a real world example, a real world project that they can kind of learn on. And, you know, the benefit to the city is that we start to think about it a little bit ahead of time. And then we come back to you guys and we do the full project that we would normally do. Another note to make on this, we've actually involved our community council leadership in this class already. So Landon, Levi, Larry, and Kenzie have all actually been to the class once now and participated with these students. And we'll keep you guys engaged as we go, but understand, you know, this is the kind of the pre-show or the pre-game for the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is going to start next year, and we'll get going and going on that. Anything else to add? If I don't know if Matt's on the call or not. If you have
Yes,
anything
let's
to add.
let's hear from Matt. Matt, it really was awesome to talk to these kids.
Yeah, it's what at my age I recognize that the innovative ideas aren't coming from me. It's me searching for the kids that have. So you find somewhere or another to think innovatively, and this is our opportunity. And I want to add on to what Lynn has said. Their deliverable at the end of the spring semester is to provide presentation materials that we will bring to the Sugar House Community Council. I want to make sure, Lynn explained it rather well, but this is an opportunity to start the discussion with what the kids put together, recognizing we want to make sure, we want to stress, and we can't stress enough that the alternatives, the ideas they put on paper are not final. They're not the direct. If there's ideas on the paper that they put together for us and you all like those and there's a lot of support, those are the pieces and parts of what they do that we'll take and carry forward. But no one has put this on yet, and this is a community to look at 2100 South and see what it might look like and start getting some pushback or support for the direction we may go in.
Awesome. Perfect addition. Thank you, Matt. All right, Landon, I think we kept it short. Anything, any questions?
Anything else you guys want to add?
No,
We really,
we're just excited.
It's cool to be
excited to do it.
involved with it, Lynn. So thank you,
Yeah.
Matt and Lynn, for inviting us. It's a great opportunity.
It's really fun.
Yeah,
and-
we're excited because, go ahead, Lynn.
No, go ahead, Matt. You're good.
It's exciting just for the students because we really, there are no barriers to them. Lynn and I are, with everything we do with the city, we have a lot of barriers, and we want them to think freely and think what if, and so we're excited to see what happens.
Perfect. Yeah, I was just going to emphasize the same. It's exciting to work with them and get some fresh creative ideas. And, for me, though, the real benefit is giving back to the community and spending some time working with these students, making sure that they get some really great experiences and learn how fun it is to do our job, because it is absolutely a pleasure to work on these kind of projects. So.
And I think part of their curriculum is they have to come to one of our community council meetings. So if anybody's on, thanks for coming tonight. We're always looking for young kids to join our community council, so. All right, thanks, guys. All right, Devin and Will, I'm gonna turn the time over to you guys.
Hi. Okay, let me quickly unmute our two panelists and then I'll kind of launch into some introductions here.
Can you unmute Will as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I think everyone who needs to be unmuted is unmuted. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. we have carved out some time in our schedule today. We've invited 2 guest speakers, which I'll get to their introductions in a moment. The segment, we've kind of titled it Mythbusters. We noticed in the last several community council meetings, there's a lot of questions having to do with both like unsheltered folks in Salt Lake City, as well as how to best assist unsheltered folks, and how to also kind of balance community needs and concerns with all of this. For tonight's panel, we've kind of pre-prepared some questions based off of themes that we've heard. There will be an opportunity to ask some questions in the chat box. And I'll kind of moderate and pull those questions after our pre-structured ones. I do want to name kind of a couple of norms on this before we get started. So first, the 2 folks that are attending our panel today are, just as everyone else here, volunteering their time, trying to help. This is meant to be kind of an educational event, not really, debating policy or anything like this, but rather just helping people understand a little bit more about issues and challenges unsheltered folks in Salt Lake City face, as well as kind of the various multi-pronged approaches to addressing this issue in our community. As such, there's a lot of different perspectives to this. And so one thing that I'll ask for folks as we're having discussions in the chat or follow-up discussions on this in future meetings is just having an approach that's both open-minded and curious about this issue and approaching it from like a holistic sense. I know that this is an issue that can get pretty sensitive and that folks oftentimes have a lot of kind of preformed opinions about and things like that. So I would just encourage everyone during this next section to just really be open-minded about you might learn some new information today. You might disagree with some of the information, and that's okay. But again, I'll just ask folks to kind of, be respectful when you're asking questions, or if you disagree with things, communicate that in a respectful way in the chat. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our 2 panelists. So first up, we've got Catherine Fife. She is the Director of Programs and Partnerships for Salt Lake County Mayor's Administration. And then we also have Rebecca Hardenbrook, who's a 3rd-year PhD student at the U in mathematics. She also does research regarding homelessness, health, and environmental justice. And Rebecca is also a grassroots organizer in Salt Lake City. So what's kind of cool is that we've got folks who work on this from, an administrative angle here in Salt Lake City and are really knowledgeable about the county's county approach to addressing homelessness and unsheltered folks in the county. And then we also have folks who are thinking about this from a more grassroots standpoint and also have some of the research pieces on this. So we're hoping that the discussion tonight in the panel will help kind of illuminate a lot of the different perspectives on this, and hopefully folks will walk away with some new information you didn't have before. I know I gave quick introductions here, but I'd like to give both Rebecca and Catherine a minute to kind of introduce themselves and include anything that they think might be good. Maybe just a quick introduction of why you agreed to do the panel tonight. So we'll start with Rebecca and then we'll move to Catherine.
Hi all, thank you so much for having me here, and thanks Devin for that great introduction. I don't know if I have very much to add. I'll just say yes, I study mathematics. Most of my research is focused on environmental justice, which led me to focus on the issue of homelessness in Salt Lake City, particularly how air quality affects people experiencing homelessness in Salt Lake City. My colleagues and I just published a paper recently, which I can share with Devin, who can share that with you all if you're interested in reading that, where we were able to actually interview about 140 individuals experiencing homelessness, both unsheltered and sheltered, use that along with air quality data and medical data, and find some really interesting findings. I also agreed to be on this panel today because Devin asked me to be here, and I have a problem with saying no. But also I thought this would be a great opportunity to maybe share a perspective that people don't hear as much, and also to answer any questions that folks may have. So again, thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. And then Catherine, were we able to get you unmuted, or are you still having issues with that?
I think I'm good to go. Thank you very much. Yeah, Devin, thank you. And it's an honor to be here. And Rebecca, I'm really looking forward to really learning from you as well, and actually looking down the attendee list here. There are some folks who are very involved or concerned or interested in issues around that are either intersect with homelessness or homelessness itself. And so I actually, while I really deal with homelessness issues on a system-wide and a policy level at Salt Lake County, really my role at Salt Lake County is to help to convene and resource all of those in our community who are working every day tirelessly to address issues to best serve those individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So I feel a little inadequate to speak here today, actually, because it's not my work. I'm not bragging about myself. There's so much work that is happening by so many great partners and organizations and advocates. And so today I'm just going to give you a little broad stroke of what's going on here. Others can add to it. And then hopefully any areas where you have more interest, we can get into, or maybe invite those folks to come and talk more detailed in future meetings. So hopefully I'm going to just give you some good broad information and point you to some data and places that you can get some more information.
Awesome. Thank you for pointing that out too, Catherine. We have a lot of folks that are doing this work, and that's one of the things I'm hoping folks will pull out of tonight too is this is a really complex type of issue to address as a community, and that's one of the reasons we're hoping to just educate people a little bit more about kind of all the pieces on this, because it's really hard to even have a conversation about next policy steps or addressing gaps and challenges if we're not all speaking the same language and on the same page about what currently exists and what those challenges are. So that being said, the first question I have for you all is, as you may have noticed, we named this panel Mythbusters. There are a lot of pieces of misinformation out there about unsheltered folks that are floating around. What are one or two myths that you frequently run into about unsheltered folks, and what's your bust of this myth? And either one of you all can start, whoever feels the verve of the question more.
Yes, I'll start. I chose two myths because I also have a problem with talking too much. So the first myth that I'll start with is that individuals experiencing homelessness, in particular unsheltered folks, are irresponsible or lazy. Homelessness really is actually a systemic societal failure, and where we treat housing as a source of profit with property that prices many hardworking people out rather than a human right that's guaranteed for all. We actually have more empty houses than unsheltered folks in this country. So we can easily provide housing for all under a new system that really prioritizes people over profit. The second myth that I'll bring up is that individuals who are experiencing homelessness are all the same. They're like a monolith of people, or that the reasons that they're in their current living situation are uniform. And this simply is not true, and can actually easily be debunked if you go out and you talk to people who are experiencing homelessness. In the actual data collection portion of my most recent research project that I was discussing earlier, my colleague Ange DeMarco, who's also a PhD student at the UNI, we interviewed those 138 individuals, half of which were currently in shelter and half of which were not. And I also use the word currently there because the situation, their lived situation is often very fluid, right? It's not common that you'll find someone who's in sheltered who hasn't been unsheltered and the other way around. But the range of reasons that these individuals have been pushed into homelessness was astounding to us, many of which were connected back to the financial crash of 2008, or due to lack of resources in their childhood while they're growing up, or an illness or an injury that forced them into unemployment and subsequently homelessness. So those would be two that I would highlight, and I'll be quiet and pass it on to Catherine.
Actually, Rebecca, I love that you address the reasons why folks are homeless, and just how individuals who are experiencing homelessness are no different than how different those people who are housed are so different, right? So, there's not one description that describes anybody who is housed or unhoused. We are all individuals and we are all very different. And that is the case with people who are experiencing homelessness as well. So I actually, that I think is a really, really good point. And one of the things, there's actually a statistic nationally, and it really is the same here in Salt Lake, that 80% of individuals experiencing homelessness did in fact become homeless because of a circumstance such as what Rebecca pointed out. So maybe an illness or just some sort of significant experience in their life that actually triggered an event that led to their experience to be in homelessness. So it's not just all of a sudden it's I don't want to work and I just want to just be here, and it's not that at all. In fact, most people would choose to be housed if they were given the opportunity. So I actually really agree and wanted to talk about that or debunk that myth as well. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is just, when we look at individuals on the streets who are sleeping on the streets, that is actually a small percentage of individuals who are experiencing homelessness. And in fact, in Salt Lake County, there are, according to our point in time count in 2020, there were 268 individuals who were unsheltered, and there were 1,690 individuals who were sheltered. So that means that in Salt Lake County, of those experiencing homelessness, only 14% are unsheltered. So when we're talking about people who are experiencing homelessness, what you see on the street does not describe all of the individuals experiencing homelessness, and they really account for about 14, a small percentage of those who are experiencing homelessness. So just to kind of debunk that myth as well.
Amazing. So Catherine, I've got kind of two questions for you. We'll start off with one and then we'll hand off to the other one. Can you, and I know that there's a lot of stuff here, but can you just give us an overview for the current model for serving unsheltered populations here in the county, and who some of those partner agencies are?
Yeah, and this is, so I actually have, I'm going to point you guys to some slides that I put some resources together. It's really hard to talk about this without showing a visual. And a lot of our partners, including Salt Lake City,
I just enabled it where I think you can share now. Let me know if it doesn't let you.
Really? Okay, this is very cool then. 1 second. And then I'm also, I can and then in the, maybe it's not going to. Okay. I'm actually, if you are okay, instead of sharing my screen, I'm going to share a link to my slides that you can find that folks can actually access even after this. And that way I can just, because technology and me are not going to be happy today, apparently. But so there are a lot of partners in Salt Lake County, and they include, government, they include service providers, they include our public safety, our health department, organizations, nonprofits, and volunteers, individuals, community members themselves. And we all play a unique, important role because we all bring different perspectives and areas of expertise to the issues. Okay, so just so you know, here is kind of a little, and actually, I guess if you wanted to share it easily, you could, but actually, and Tim Cosgrove is on here, and there is on slide 7 of the slideshow that I put together, shows a really good, there you go, look at you. Slide 7 actually shows a really nice, like how people can either have a service request, or if they notice something that they need to report, and who is all involved, and the path that you take to report those issues. And then here in the resources, we really show who are our partners involved, and you can see there too. It includes Salt Lake City Police Department. It includes Salt Lake County, both aging services as well as the health department, and so forth. So it goes on. We do have our resource centers. And so there are a lot of different players, a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of different resources that then you can connect individuals with, depending on what the issue is. And so this just shows a little bit of who our players are and who the system is, as far as especially with the city, how community members really connect individuals with services as well as report issues. And then Devin, if you don't mind just scrolling down a little bit, I want to show, a lot of people ask about on slide number 9. There is, when we shifted our model in Salt Lake County, we used to have one emergency shelter downtown, the Road Home emergency shelter, which really was the emergency shelter for everyone. And then that actually is reflected here on the left side, that old model. We had the shelter, and then we would really just, either you would go into housing or the shelter. So we created a new model, which is includes the 3 new resource centers, although we have more resource centers and more shelter beds than just those 3. But what we have is working on trying to have more resources for more individuals, to make sure that the barriers to accessing shelter and housing are being addressed through kind of unique, smaller, more focused solutions. And so really we're working together with Utah Community Action and the service providers to really try to connect people in a more systematic way. Of course, that shift happened right before COVID hit. So while it's really working well, there's this continuous improvement and making sure that we're always working to better connect people with services, which, you know, it's always a work in progress. Finally, I want to just show you one other, actually, maybe that's it for now. So I think I'll pause there, and then we can go on throughout the discussion to talk more about some of the partners.
Awesome. And just to let folks know, I'm capturing the questions in the chat. And so hopefully, if we can't get to them on the panel, I'll ask Catherine and Rebecca if they wouldn't mind maybe sharing some responses in the chat when we move to close up, or we can send some follow-up resources. But I promise one way or another, we'll make sure we get everyone's questions addressed. So the next question for you, Catherine. So you talked about a couple of the county initiatives, both, or like some of the county initiatives here. Are there any other county initiatives, either short-term or long-term, to help support folks that you didn't get a chance to talk about?
Yeah, actually, I want to point you to slide number 8. So it's right in between those two. So when we say Salt Lake County initiatives, so our role is to convene and resource a lot of the different efforts happening within the county. And so I really want to point to the efforts of a lot of individuals. And I think Tim just put this in the chat. And I think there's others who are talking about some strategies that are happening out there as well. So we have really Salt Lake County and partners have really beefed up some efforts around COVID-19, protecting individuals experiencing homelessness and our community from COVID, so mitigating the spread and keeping folks healthy and safe. So we have done that a lot of, I mean, I could do a whole session on that. I could talk for hours about that. Really, there's so much outreach that is happening in our community. And one of the silver linings of COVID-19 is that we, as a community, have received more funding to increase our outreach teams. So VOA outreach has expanded. The Road Home has outreach, the VA, South Valley Services. I mean, there's a lot of outreach that is happening. There are activist groups that are really involved in outreach as well. So there's a lot going on really as far as connecting and getting resources out to folks. We have more temporary emergency shelter beds in Salt Lake County now than ever before. And that is new. We have more housing vouchers, meaning, subsidized housing and ability through the housing authorities to help with rent for those who qualify. We have more permanent supportive housing in our community than ever before as well. We had a Pamela's Place open up. This year we have Magnolia. So those are permanent supportive housing. And then we have on the horizon a lot of folks who are talking about some very innovative, neat, diverse and creative housing solutions. And I think those are going to be coming online soon as well. Rebecca was talking about research. There's so much great research happening at the U. So many great around, you talked about air quality, but also about rapid rehousing, about the impacts of COVID. So many good things. Utah Foundation is also doing that. Lots of increased partnerships. We work with folks all across the state. And then I think in the chat, if I saw Tim talked about the community commitment program and the efforts that Salt Lake City have really embarked on to help folks. And then, you know, I listed those housing opportunities there. There's a lot going on. And, you know, I think it's really easy to say, I mean, we always need more, right? We all know that we always need more, but we need to continuously celebrate our successes, celebrate the efforts of everyone around us, and know that together we're really going to make a difference. Okay.
Thank you so much for that, Catherine. And I'm sure we'll also talk about more of these as the conversation goes on in the panel. So I know there's a lot to pack into this. The next question I have is for Rebecca. So, you know, we've heard a little bit about some of kind of the formal policy institutional responses to this. I'm curious, what are some of the grassroots support efforts for unsheltered folks happening in the community? And again, I know on both sides of these, like there's folks that agree with the way the county's handling stuff, and there's folks that agree the way that grassroots stuff's being handled, and there's folks that disagree with both of these. So I think it's just helpful to know like what's happening on all fronts on this, right?
Last year, oh, perfect, thank you. So last year, there was a coalition, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this in the news, but there's a coalition of local organizations that was known as the Take Shelter Coalition. So the Take Shelter Coalition mostly provided food, basic medical care, support for individuals experiencing unsheltered homeless. The coalition was also working to gain awareness of this critical issue and make moves within the city and county. This year, we are seeing, this year and last year, so mostly over the winter, we're seeing a lot of organized actions being taken. Some of those you may have heard of. There's Open Air Shelter, there's Camp Last Hope, which have a similar working mission as the Take Shelter Coalition, but both are attempting to do so in a more long-term sustainable way. We also now have a Street Medic Collective in Salt Lake City, which has developed over the last year. And they're working to create a way in which mobile medic teams can go out and provide care to unsheltered individuals throughout the valley. We're also seeing a massive movement of individuals actually stepping up, using their own money, their own labor, and coordinating with friends or other people in the community to deliver food or care packages to unsheltered folks. I think it's really important here to make it clear that despite sometimes what more official bodies may say, this does not take away from their efforts or their resources. The fact is simply that, and I realize that I may come across as harsh here in this particular moment, but the resources that are provided by the city, by the county, by the state, even nationally, are not enough for two primary reasons. One is that they do not receive enough resources, so that may be money or people power to truly address the issue of homelessness. And two, some of the efforts that we are seeing, these resources that they are getting go into, are maybe misguided or not backed by research in terms of efficacy. We know that police intervention is simply not effective. We know that, in fact, it increases risk within homeless populations. We know that the current shelter system also doesn't necessarily work for people's mental or physical health. Speaking from my research, we found that there is no difference in the physical or mental health effects of air pollution between sheltered or unsheltered individuals experiencing homelessness. They both receive very negative health effects from air quality. We're hoping to look into COVID and all these things in the coming years. We know that housing first policies work. We know that human-centered policies work. And so we have to start shifting in that direction. The true solutions that we're seeking to the homeless crisis really ultimately require a new system and a new perspective. So I'll just say that.
Can I add to something just that Rebecca's saying? Rebecca, I don't think it's harsh to say that we don't have enough resources. I think that it's there needs to be more resources. And I think there is actually a success story that shows if you put more resources into something that it can be successful, and that's been around veterans homelessness. So nationally, there has been a really big effort to appropriately address more appropriately address homelessness, especially among veterans. And in across the nation, we have seen dramatic drops in veteran homelessness because there have been a lot. I mean, it's just not just one time, but there have been continuous a lot of funding and a lot of different solutions and resources put into the issue. And so I think that if we look at something like veteran homelessness, where, and I think even in that slideshow, there's some you can even see some statistics on number of veterans who are homeless in Salt Lake County, which is low. And then also just even in the last few years, we're really focusing on veteran homelessness because there's so many rich resources to help it, that we are really, really making significant impacts there. And so we do know that if we actually put a lot of resources and time and attention and focus on something holistically, we can make a difference. And so I do think that a lot of folks who talk about we need more funding and need more resources, need more attention, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely right, we do. And we need to have the right solutions, because it's all like what you said earlier, everyone is different, everyone is unique. It's not one solution for everyone. So we have to have a myriad of diverse solutions to meet the diverse situations of individuals. But we can with more resources. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you both for that. Speaking of, I think we all have probably in the back of our minds some gaps and challenges, and we'll get into that for a second. But I do actually want to take a minute to give both of you an opportunity to talk about maybe some successes that we've seen in the community regarding care for homeless and unsheltered folks. And either one of you that wants to start can jump in.
I think, when and Rebecca, I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I'll just be real super quick, because I have a feeling that maybe we'll say some of the same things here, but we need to look at, how and why individuals become homeless, and the intersects of different systems and things that happen to that both lead to homelessness, as well as make it difficult to get out of homelessness once you become homeless, and kind of the spiraling effects that take place, because once you're down, it's hard to get back up because there's a lot of things working against you. And so to look at how systems impact individuals, whether it's employment, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's wages, and how those things can really, really make an impact. And I don't know, in like the research and those who are even in our homeless resource centers, a lot of people are surprised to know that a large number of them are employed. And actually, as a system, as a community in Salt Lake County, one of our successes is that the income of individuals who are experiencing homelessness has increased, but not enough to allow for affordable housing for individuals. And so it's not enough. So we need to make sure that we are, as a system, and working with our policymakers, and to make sure that folks have access to a living wage, including a minimum wage. So it's things like that those kind of issues that are where some real glaring gaps exist in our community. I'll throw it over to you, Rebecca.
Thanks. No, yeah, thank you for highlighting all of that. I especially am grateful for the reminder that when someone is suddenly like thrust into this situation of experiencing homelessness, it's incredibly difficult to get out of that situation. And when we were doing our research and interacting with individuals out on the street or in the shelter, I was surprised to learn from people just how long they had been experiencing homelessness. I had met somebody who was somewhere in his 60s, and when I asked him, "Oh, how long have you been experiencing homelessness?" he said, "Somewhere from around 16 to 18. You know, this has been my normal," and that was not an uncommon situation to come across, and that all comes down to what Catherine was saying. Just in terms of some successes, all speaking from the grassroots perspective, of course, different grassroots community organizations, both here and like throughout the state and throughout the nation, have consistently filled holes that we're seeing in like the ability of the local and state and national governments response to homelessness, just based again on the resources that they have. They've helped provide meals, like I said, warming and charging stations, needle exchanges, and so on, organized by the community, which have had like very real impact in the direct experience of individuals experiencing specifically unsheltered homelessness. I mentioned someone had thrown in the chat the story of the man who is allowing people to stay in his camp in his front yard. That's Darren Mann. He's actually a friend of mine. I would say that's a success story, seeing like individuals coming together and really providing direct care for a group of people that they have the capacity to do so. So I think we're seeing small challenges. I think where we're going to see the largest challenge is just people continuing to become more educated on the issue, continuing to center their mindset around this issue from a more humanistic perspective, realizing that these people are indeed that. They are just people like us. They have needs like us. They love and they enjoy life and go for walks and like to read books and enjoy sleeping in like a comfortable area just like the rest of us. So I think the greatest challenge that we can have is a shared mindset that shifts to one of care first rather than criminalization.
Devin, if I could add one more thing to successes, I appreciate all that you said, Rebecca. We have, I think one of the comments that you just made was you talked to folks who were out on the streets for a long time, and that those are by definition often referred to as chronically homeless. So those who have spent a lot of time on the streets. And Devin, I don't know, like on the slides, if you want to pop up, if you want to share again on slide number 4, I just wanted to point out one thing. And this is actually, I know I'm getting to a success, but the bad news is that some of our data here in Salt Lake County shows that the number of chronically homeless individuals has actually increased over the last couple of years. So that's not good. And so you can see here in this slide, just the number of folks. It's just increased a bit over the years. But what we have found, so what I'm getting to is that the success is that there is a proven here in Salt Lake County and nationally housing solution that is specific for chronically homeless individuals, and that is permanent supportive housing. And so on the next slide I kind of talked about it a little bit. We had Pamela's Place come online, and that it is a permanent supportive housing, provides permanent supportive housing units for the community. And then there are others that are coming online. First Up House also brought one online. And here you can see in Salt Lake County, we've had huge success rates. Once we're able to have enough units for those who are experiencing chronic homelessness, we've experienced a 93% success rate of retaining once they're in there, to retain or not to go back to homelessness for that population that has really been on the streets or been homeless for a number of years. Perhaps that population, it's not quite as easy to, just get a job and get into, and all of a sudden have to pay your own rent. And so this has been an effective solution. And then one of the other things this year, the housing authorities, both Housing Connect and Salt Lake City Housing Authority, have been able to make available some additional Section 8 vouchers, which has been nice as well, because then that allows for some movement in our system. And I think that's what we want to do. We want a lot of solutions, and we're getting more diverse solutions so that we can actually plug people better, into the right solution for them, instead of plugging them into a solution that may or may not be the right fit for them. So, getting more units and more, options for units, because a permanent supportive housing solution might not be the best for everyone, but it certainly is, and it's a proven solution for those who are experiencing chronic homelessness. So, anyway, just to add that. Thanks, Devin.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And you actually kind of preempted, because I was going to ask about that, because I had noticed the slides on there when I was sharing stuff. So I'm glad that you had jumped into that. And then Catherine, I'm actually kind of curious, what are some of the myths that you'd like to bust about the current service model, or Salt Lake County's responses? I know there's been a lot of news in the last few weeks about shelter, like camp abatements. So the word escaped my head for a moment. I know, I think some of this is folks are not super familiar with what the process is for what camp abatement looks like. And then also, I know in general, like this is kind of there's a lot of controversy around these types of services. And so I'm kind of curious if there is anything that you feel like is kind of commonly misunderstood that you'd like to just, help clarify for folks.
Yeah, I actually want to encourage, if folks are really interested in this topic and learning more about the details about abatements and the Salt Lake County Health Department's role, Salt Lake City just hosted a Facebook Live event earlier this week. I don't know, maybe Tim has a link to it. He can even pop in the chat. But it was really informative, and there were folks from the health department in Salt Lake City and then VOA's outreach team that really spoke to their different roles in addressing camps and abatements and what they mean, and the different roles in there. And I think I would just encourage everybody to check that out, because they described in a lot more detail what we don't have time to go in here. I think in general, the Salt Lake County, I think that's a lot of the concern is around Salt Lake County Health Department's role. It is a regulatory role, and it is really public health focused to ensure that folks are healthy. And it is really to make sure that we don't have other health issues associated with camps, and that folks can be healthy and safe as well. So, so it's a regulatory role, and really it's Salt Lake County with partners provide notice well in advance of cleanups, and do their best to work with partners to connect individuals with resources and services, and have no intention of stealing individuals' personal belongings or taking anything away from people. So the camp abatements actually happen, it's whatever somebody leaves behind after much notice leading up to those abatements. And I know this is one of the most, like, it creates feels in everyone, and including the health department, and especially, everybody talks about you bring a bulldozer. There have been abatements. The Salt Lake County has been cleaning up camps for actually decades, to be quite, it's actually a regular thing. Not all require a bulldozer, and I know, because it's hard for even anybody to see a bulldozer taking anybody's stuff. But that's because of efficiencies in actually the number of the amount of garbage. And I don't know, I imagine that all of us do walk around our community and do pick up garbage that is left anywhere, where if it's blown in or whether somebody's there. I know it does pile up, and just like anywhere, if there is garbage, or there's human waste, or any other things that are there for a while, you all of a sudden have other issues to deal with instead of just garbage. And so you have to clean it up. And that's really what it is about. So I think that's just in general. Of course, there's so much more that could be said about that. And I am not the health department, and I'm not an expert on this, but I would definitely encourage you to check out that Facebook Live and then continue the conversation and continue to talk about it, because it is an important conversation to have.
Great. Thank you so much. Again, we just, wanted to, there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. And I'm glad that you had mentioned the piece too about continuing the conversation, because we certainly can't cover all aspects of this issue this evening. And the hope is to kind of give people enough basic information, to be able to actually, go deep dive into these things a little bit more and get some of these questions answered. And again, we'll follow up to via email with some more resources for folks on that.
Devin, I really want Rebecca to talk about some of her, because I know she really has the perspective. So I just wanted to see, Rebecca, I know I'd be interested to hear too some from your, just any comments to add to what I said as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about jumping in, but I want to make sure this was worded carefully. I think that it's hard, not only hard to see, bulldozers and giant machinery rolling into people's camps, it's also hard to still hear it being defended as a solution. In the time that I have been working with people experiencing homelessness and interviewing them from that period of time to also going and actively working to provide them with the necessary resources that they so desperately need. A lot of things that may be considered trash are truly their personal belongings. We've watched tents, sleeping bags, cell phones. People still have phones, even if they are experiencing homelessness. Food, pictures of loved ones, important documentation that they have, like their IDs or different things, be considered trash because it's sitting on a sidewalk, not on a person. One of my friends who used to work at the road home before it was shut down watched as bulldozers rolled in during Operation Rio Grande, and a police officer walk up to a woman who had 2 suitcases, and because she couldn't lift both of them up, they were immediately thrown into a garbage truck. And those were the only things that she owned. Those were the last things that she had on her personal self. I understand the argument of efficiency. I'm a mathematician, that's my game. It is efficiency, finding ways to model things easily. But I think when it comes to dealing with homelessness, efficiency in terms of cleanup shouldn't be the priority. The priority should be, how do we give these people solutions? How do we take care of their health? How do we take care of public health at large in solving this? I would even challenge the word cleanup. What are we cleaning up? We're cleaning up people's lives. We're taking their lives and their belongings away from them. And I think that's important to keep in mind. I also understand, wanting to get people to understand where the city is coming from or the county is coming from, but actually being there in person when it's happening and seeing the destruction that it causes to so many people and causes them to go further into that spiral that we mentioned earlier. I think it's really hard. It's really hard to make that argument, and so much so that I don't think that it's possible. That's all that I wanted to add to that.
No, thank you very much both for that. Again, I think this in particular, I think is a very hard piece to talk about here, because there's the policy and kind of statute side of this. And there's also the very real human element of this. And depending on kind of what your perspective of this, you're seeing very different things in here. So I really appreciate you both sharing those perspectives on there, because I think it's important to understand what's happening on both sides of this piece here so that we can start developing better community and policy responses to this as a community. If we don't know these things on either way, we can't do much about it or move forward, right? So
Yeah, and Devin, I would say that actually there's not even a point of disagreement in our comments. I think that there's at the core, there's a desire to help people connect with services and to have the resources that they need to live the lives that they feel would be successful for them. And I think that it is really, to me, I appreciate like even the words and the language, because they can be triggering. They can actually cause people trauma, and the images and understanding how much harm that can do to individuals is really important to recognize. I think it's also important to recognize that everything that happens leading up to that, and even during and afterwards, are all about helping that individual, and how we can do it better, how we can make sure that the last thing on that person doesn't get lost in the mix, and how we all work to get that person what they need without it being difficult, like meaning traumatizing, or how we can better accomplish, I think, the goal that we all have, which is caring for our community, is what we need to do. And yeah, we need to think about how we can do it better. But I think we both have, not both of us, but I think all of us have the same goal, actually.
thank you for that. We are going to wrap up in about 4 minutes. And so the last question I actually want to ask, because again, the purpose of this panel is to give folks a foundation to kind of spark the folks being able to dive in more with resources. I know we've talked about a lot of resources today in terms of like, here's where you can go to read about this policy or this piece on here. I want to take a step back when we think about resources here for a second. I just would, and you can take a minute to think about this. I apologize, this is kind of a spur of the moment question on this, but what's one educational resource that you would recommend people? This could be a podcast or a documentary or a book or a research article, just something that you think would help folks who, really deeply care about this issue understand a little bit more, whether that's a humanizing perspective or a policy or whatever. So take a minute to think about that. Just, what if you were going to tell somebody to look at one resource leaving this meeting today, what would that be?
There's a lot of resources. I think, to me, wow, yeah, okay, that's an interesting question. So there's one resource that I just tapped into that I want to learn more, and I don't know if it's like the end all be all, because there's actually a lot of really great resources. I think actually looking at resources that offer different perspectives is better than looking at one resource. So I would encourage everybody to even do a Google search and look at, like, I actually think that there should be, like different perspectives all the time, because we're better because of it. But there's a podcast that was released last year called The Outsiders. It's actually not a local podcast, but it's one that I'm just starting to get into. So I actually can't even talk about the whole thing, but it's super intriguing because it centers around a documentation of a lot of the issues that we're talking about here tonight, and are really around unsheltered homelessness. So I would maybe point people there. And it's funny because I'm saying that and I haven't even listened to it all, but I think, just educating yourself and knowing that there are, I would also caution folks from listening to sound bites. And, the one, like there are a few different things that, either numbers or phrases that people get stuck on, that And I think that forward thinking, long-term solutions, and making sure you're not just listening to one little phrase and being really educated on all of that is good. So I would say that finally, and I'll throw it to Rebecca, I'm sorry. And this is actually in my slides, but part of, and this is shameless plug, Salt Lake County, we convene the Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness. And this is, just a coalition of folks who are working to address different issues around homelessness. And I do think that there are a lot of different stakeholders involved, but they tend to be more organizations, nonprofits, and government. And I would love to get more individuals just to be involved, just to get that more diverse perspective as well to add to the conversation. So check out the Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness as well, and we always want more folks to join the conversation there.
Yeah, I think those are great. This question is really hard for me to answer because although I am like a cusper of Gen Z and millennial, I don't listen to podcasts at all, which I feel like is blasphemous to say. So I don't have any podcast resources. One thing I'll also shamelessly plug is our paper that we recently published, which I will post the link in the chat right now. You should see it in there. You should be able to access it through that link, but if not, you are always free to email me. I have a university email. You can just look me up, University of Utah, and email me there. I'm happy to send it to you. But also, like a big thing that's really easy to do is simply like Googling things and being very critical about your sources. So ensuring that you're not getting sources from groups that are necessarily biased if you're looking for like factual data-backed answers to your questions. I think also a major point of education is to educate ourselves in terms of like what we should or shouldn't do in like interacting with people experiencing homelessness. Something I wanted to bring up, which I think addresses something that's being discussed in the chat like pretty actively right now, is that one of the biggest things that you can do when you're interacting with folks is to just be a decent and kind person. I know some people always talk about, well, every time I've talked to somebody who's experiencing homelessness, they're rude, they're mentally ill. I saw like a statistic thrown around that 20 to 25% of people experiencing homelessness are mentally ill. And actually, I'd like to just bring up that 20% of adults in this country are experiencing mental illness. So this 20 to 25% of people experiencing homelessness who are mentally ill, this is not a large statistic in comparison to the general population. And on the point of being rude and not wanting to interact with people because of that, I think philosophically, when you alienate someone, you aren't just distancing yourself from them, you are actively distancing them and yourself from society at large. And so I think there's a deeper conversation that you can have with yourself. Why am I afraid of somebody who's experiencing homelessness? What am I concerned about in talking to them or learning more about their lived experience? And kind of sitting with yourself personally. There's a lot of unlearning and relearning that people need to do on this topic. And I don't think anybody should be particularly ashamed about that, but own that and use that for good at large. I'll be quiet there because I saw Landon unmute himself.
I promised Landon we would be wrapped up 3 minutes ago. So he's timekeeping here. Thank you both so much for your time. I'll go through the chat tonight and try to kind of corral everything into some resource guides, and then we'll also send out Catherine's PowerPoint. Rebecca, if there's anything else that you also want to make sure it gets sent along to people, let us know. But thank you all so much for this, and also thank you, Will, for helping co-plan and arrange this with me. We will hand this over to Landon so we can close out the meeting. Thank you all so much.
Hey, thank you guys. That was great. We love doing stuff like this, so thank you. We're going to turn the time over to the Highland High Principal, Jeremy Chatterton, for a minute to talk about school going back, and then we'll get to Tim Cosgrove, and then we'll wrap up. Go ahead, Jer.
Hey, thanks everyone. Yeah, I agree. Thanks for that fantastic presentation. That was really enlightening and very cool to have you present. Just want to let everyone know schools have elementary schools started up last week. Kindergarten and first grade. This week, second grade and third grade has started up in Salt Lake District. And next week we have fourth grade through 12th grade. So fourth, fifth, sixth in your elementaries, middle schools will be back in, and high schools. Our middle schools and high schools will be working on a hybrid schedule. So students, half the students will come in 2 days a week, and then the other half will come in the other 2 days a week. So just want to give everybody a heads up. There are kids walking to school again now. So if you're on your morning commute in the neighborhood, just be cognizant of that. And if you have any questions or anything else, please feel free.
Thank you. And good luck. All right, Tim, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I don't know if you can see me. Nice to be with you. Happy February. I think January's gone, just flown by so fast. Last Tuesday, Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall shared her vision with the State of the City address for 2021, guided by her intention for a stronger, more resilient, more equitable Salt Lake in 2021 and beyond. It's with her intent to guide the vision with 4 bold pillars of principle, including harnessing growth for the good of all residents, leading the way on environmental stewardship and resiliency, creating equitable and inclusive opportunities with all of the city's communities, and taking care of our city employee families. Part of achieving the mayor's vision includes forming the first ever innovation department for the city, which will drive the projects and make city government more nimble, more efficient, and more cohesive. This team that the mayor's establishing will lead out in creating a culture of innovation in city government, helping the Salt Lake City to modernize businesses and businesses' processes, standardize our approach to project management, and improve public transparency, streamlining inefficiencies and promoting the use of data to drive those decisions. The mayor has put together a report card assessing the 2020 year. She believes that a candid look at what we accomplished and what we didn't, and the work that's ongoing on your behalf. She believes that if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So no matter what happens in any given year of the mayor's administration, of our administration, we're going to measure it. I'm going to put the mayor's full address link with her speech and a complete look at her 2021 plan, and then the report card in the link so that you can have access to that. I was also asked by Landon to give a short update, a short presentation on the legislative session, which began January 19th and goes through March 5th. As you know, we're right in the thick of things. The city has made some priorities. We're continuing to track and advocate for a lot of bills related to our top city priorities, like with affordable housing, homelessness, transparency, law enforcement, sustainability. The mayor actually testified this morning in support of a $30 million appropriation request for affordable housing projects brought to the legislature by our own Senator Kitchen and Representative Collard. Our CAN, Community and Neighborhood Department policy team, is monitoring 2 ADU bills that have been introduced by Representative Ward and Dunnigan. They're House Bills 82 and House Bill 273. What else? There's we're going to continue to advocate for more state investments into affordable housing and homelessness services. I was told today there's over 100 bills introduced in this year's legislative session, just looking at law enforcement and police practice reforms. The city has, I know, a position on 4 of the bills that I'm aware of, sponsored by our own Angela Romero, representative from Salt Lake, and House Bill 84, House Bill 162, and House Bill 264. And the city is in support of those. I can go into a little bit of detail. I know some of the biggest concerns were some of the land use bills. There's a big effort that's very concerning on billboards. 2 bills that are in the Senate remove the authority of government entities and how to regulate billboards, and even require permits for upgrades, including the digitizing. This could have serious impacts for the quality of life of residents, particularly those who live in areas where we're seeing a lot of dense residential development. But Salt Lake City has over 200 billboards, mostly located in Central City and the northwest part of the city. And if these legislative efforts are successful, then we're going to see digitized billboards without restriction. So try to address some of those in a nutshell. Any questions for me?
Tim, it'll all be in the chat. But thank you. Could you send those to me and I'll try to get those out to everybody?
Yes, I will. And if you'd like someone from the city's representative to talk about priorities for the 18th, I can help arrange that.
That'd be great.
I also put the link for our legislative bill sheets in the chat so people can look at what we're looking at and see what we see. And we're happy to share that information as well.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I know it was a little awkward. Bess, do you have anything to say? Devin, can you unmute Bess? Bess is the director of Fairmont Aquatic.
I miss everybody. I miss the meetings in person. I do want to thank Catherine for all the work that she is doing. It does impact us at Fairmont, and so just thank you for that discussion tonight. It was great. It will be shutting down for a week sometime in March or April just to drain the pool to get some clean water in there. Club teams are now back in the pool. So Highland will be finishing in a few weeks, and we have 2 clubs back in the pool now, and with a third knocking on the door wanting in, and then a 4th water polo team also wanting in, but we'll keep space for our lap swimmers and water walkers. And I just appreciate the community being supportive of the challenges that we're all facing during COVID. So that is all I have to share. Thank you, Landon.
Thank you, Beth. We'll see you on the lacrosse field.
Oh, you bet. Our team's going to kick your team's ass. So just remember that.
Yeah, okay. I hope we play. All right, guys. Well, thank you. And meeting adjourned. We'll see you next month.